It all started with an after-work seminar about 1 year ago. And you could get a NFC implant on Mink, one of the neighboring buildings here. And I went there because I'm really interested in cyborgs. And I thought that anyone who would do this is either have no sense of self-preservation or is just generally stupid. And I went away from there with the urgent need to get one of these. So it was kind of an epiphany, like what had happened in these 40 minutes that made me go from I can never do this until I absolutely need one. Yes. I've never been an early adopter of anything. I got my smartphone in like 2012. I think everybody had one at that time. I also used to be a tech skeptic. So I used the method of opt-out for about everything, because I thought that technology was no solution to basically anything. But I love science fiction, especially dystopian science fiction, and I love cyborgs. Next. So what I realized after this seminar is that there's a fundamental difference between security people and entrepreneurs, people who do things and people who analyze. So what often happens is that security people are not hyper adopters, but when they see a technology, like please correct me if I'm wrong, but when they see a technology, they immediately start doing the risk assessment, saying, okay, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. This is never going to work. And they opt out. And the entrepreneurs, they keep on going like they always have done, like really driven and like really creative. And this technology becomes a huge success. And then exactly those problems that the security people were talking about re-emerge, but in a massive scale. And then it's already too late. So that was my realization. And that's also the reason why I got this chip implant. Yes. At the time that I was going to this seminar, I was watching Stargate Atlantis. This guy is named Ronan. And he has been caught by life-sucking aliens called the Wraith. And he is constantly being chased by them with because he has a tracking device in his back. And he can't get it out, and he will put everyone else at risk who he ever meets. So he's kind of a loner, and the Stargate people, of course, helps him and takes this tracker device out of his body. And the other example here is 7 of 9, one of my childhood favorites. She's a Borg, so she's part human and part cyborg. Her body depends on nanobots, and she also has a tracking device that on and off, it goes on sometimes as a plot device, sending out subspace communications. So this is what I was thinking of when I said that anybody who would have a chip like this is an idiot. Next. Those trackers are already here. Richard Stallman talks about them as governmental tracking devices. And we voluntarily carry these around, and we voluntarily give up our private information. And this is by design. The dystopia that I was talking about is already here, and it's really hard to get out of. Because otherwise, you know, the telephone wouldn't work without triangulation. It's just how it is. Next, yes. These cyborgs are also already here. So this is the first discussion point. I'd like you to just mumble with each other about what I may mean about this. You have to get closer together. So I first have this fictional definition. As I said, I love science fiction. We have the Terminator, who is a cybernetic organism, living tissue over a metal endoskeleton. And this die Menschmaschine halb Wesen und halb Ding, halb Überding. Wesen means creature, I think, and Über, you know what Über thing means? The superhuman being. Next definition. The original definition by Manfred Kleins in 1960 is that a human being with bodily functions aided or controlled by technological devices. So here we have a pacemaker. That's an insulin pump that is attached but not implanted. This is an implanted intrauteral device used for contraceptives. This is a schematics for dialysis. And why is Malala here? Does anyone know? She got a bullet in her head, and what happened then? Oh, okay, I wasn't thinking about that because that bullet in her head is not like really enhancing or like regaining function. But she had a bullet in her head. She got her ear crushed, and she lost her hearing. And now she has a cochlear implant. But since she always wears a veil and always has hair, we don't see it. But the cochlear implant is it's a kind of implanted hearing aid that will make you regain, gain, or even enhance your hearing into superhuman levels, although that's not at the table at the moment because it's proprietary and it's considered unethical. Next step. Next slide. Okay, so then we have the implant definition instead, that a cyborg means that it needs to be like a real part of your body. And then some of these, the intrauteral device, the pacemaker, and the cochlear implant are still there. And this is an NFC implant. Next. There's a Cyborg Organization in Germany. Of course, there's an organization for everything in Germany, I suppose, which uses this definition. A cyborg is a human being with an electronical device implanted or steadily attached to the body with the purpose of increasing individual senses or abilities beyond the occasional use of tools. And by this definition, you are completely right about us being constantly on the internet. They claim that we are all cyborgs because of this. Yes? Okay, so now is the part where I will confess to a crime. So 11 days before I turned 18, there was a punk concert that I really badly wanted to go to, but I wasn't allowed to go there. And so I did what everybody in my shoes would do. I borrowed my sister's identification. And then it's a question, which one of these pictures is me and which is my sister? Left is that, okay. The blonde one? Okay. It's a trick question because they are both me. But the fact that I got in with my sister's ID says something about the ways that we usually handle identification up until now, that they are flawed and there are ways to go around. And also, I felt that I had the ethical advantage for this because at the time, I wasn't a drinker, so I wouldn't do anything illegal on the inside. I wouldn't put anyone else at risk. And I just wanted to listen to punk, can't a girl do that, you know? 35 days before my 18th birthday, there was an election in Sweden, and I wasn't allowed to vote. Why didn't I? I could have taken my sister's ID at that time. No, I couldn't have, because when I went to that gig, they were only looking for my for the numbers, you know. They were only looking for authorization. They weren't looking for identification, which are two different things. They were only interested in whether or not I was of a certain age. They were not interested in what my name was or how I actually looked. Maybe they didn't actually look at the picture, I don't know, because I had like 180 BPM and was totally thinking that I would get busted. And the reason I can tell you all about this is because the period of limitation, preskriptionstid, is 2 years, so it's all right. But when it came to the election, I can't go and use my sister's passport because they are actually looking to authenticate who I am, not just authorize my age. Next. And so the next discussion points, there are two. How secure are the physical identification methods used today? And how secure do we wish them to be? Thank you all. Let's go on with, let's see what my next, okay, go back. So the reason we have biometrics passports is after 2001, it was a requirement in the US, and for us to not to also get in, we also needed to comply with biometric passports. And in America, they said, hey, it's kind of not very good to have RFID in your passport. I'm not comfortable with this, because they can be remotely or somewhat remotely read. For example, like this. So they made a Faraday cage, making them impossible to read, harder to read if you don't open them. But this is not the case for our, damn it, I was gonna show you how it's gonna say beep, because it did at my home yesterday. Yeah, okay, you have to believe me that these are really easy to read. Sorry, because they are doing this all the time. I have a wallet too, and my yo-yo kort is like blah, all the time when I'm speaking to someone. It's kind of annoying. So we already have like, these are kind of secure, but since I never went to the US, I've never used those kind of biometrics. They are just collected and retained. Next. So a quickie about authentication and identification. You can identify or authenticate by something you know, something you have, or something you are. Something you know might be your credentials, as in your username, your mail, or your password. Something you have is a token, a soft token or a hard token, your mobile phone, for example. And something you are is your iris, the way you move, the way you type, your fingerprints, your biometrics in the face, and so on. Next. And what Louis already touched upon, there's a problem with biometrics. There are several problems with biometrics. There's a lot of false negatives for all. I use biometrics when I go into my gym. And so I need to have a card that is NFC, and then I need to put my fingerprint there. But when it's cold, it doesn't work. So I need to do like this, and then it may be working. Fitness 24/7, yes. And also we have the problem about when I have my fingerprint registered, what if I cut my finger? And also they are inherently, they have many big issues. And also it's a problem to make them, make the body speak to the computer. So why not do the other way around and make there's a problem making the body to speak computer language. Why don't we? Now I said it in the exact same bad way. How should I say it? Okay, we need to teach the body to speak to machines. Okay, so that's what I'm doing with my chip. Next. Yeah, this is the XNT implant. It's ISO 14443 compliant. It has 868 bytes of memory and a unique ID. It has a 1.5 millimeter antenna, and the standard specifies that the antenna should be about this big. So it's made for passports or for credit cards. So the 1.5 millimeter antenna makes it very hard to read, which I think is a good thing. The biggest problem about that comes when I have a bad chip and also a bad reader, as in my phone. I'll talk about that later. It's about 12 millimeters long, biocompatible glass, and they actually, like, they do talk about security. They are concerned about security, although the chip in itself is proprietary, but they are working together with Kaspersky Labs with what kind of problems do you have, risk assessment and stuff. And one good thing about this is also that it's passive. I was talking before about the implants that Ronan and 709 have, which are constantly communicating. This one does not communicate unless we create the field with an active tag. So this is a passive tag, and it does absolutely nothing as long as there is no NFC field around it. But when that field is activated, that can be eavesdropped from afar. Yeah? No, it doesn't beep on the airport gate. It's totally undetectable. Not totally, obviously. Like, can you see it? No, but I can see it. Because I know where it is, and yeah, but you can think that it's a blood vessel, basically. And even if you're in an MRI machine, the only thing that will happen is that you get a slight attenuation of the picture. It's just blurry, but very, very small blurriness. Yeah, it's in biocompatible glass, so it doesn't react to my body, and my body has actually, I think I'm a bit special in that way because it has moved. It's supposed to like stay about at the same place, but mine has moved about an inch, and I can move it like front and back. I will not show you that because it's disgusting. But yeah, the whole point here is that I will be able to take it out at any time. I can go to a piercer, or I can go to a doctor to take it out. It's just another piercing. Next. So the use cases I can see for this is about public and non-sensitive data, because they are inherently possible to read. You should not carry anything there that is not meant to be public. So I have put my PGP fingerprint and my LinkedIn profile here, as I really want my LinkedIn profile to be public. And I can also unlock my phone, although, as I said, this is a bad antenna and that's a bad reader, so it's kind of inconvenient. I don't know if I can. It's really hard to find it. I did find it this time. So now I want you to discuss again, what use cases do you see for this? Next. So yeah, I'm not totally sure about the Wi-Fi in this. Yeah, so I'm not. Yeah, and now I can't reach it. That's too bad, really. So I think we'll have to skip it. But this is a 3-minute video from Motherboard with the creator of this chip from the Dangerous Things, Amal Grafstra. And he talks about his cryptographically secure platform for just what Hendrik said, which the film doesn't know what he said, but you all know what he said. Next. So I suppose, how many of you have this? Okay, there is not one person who doesn't have it. Oh, there is exactly one person who doesn't have it.
It's kind of de facto required here.
It's de facto required. There are 6.5 million instances of BankID in Sweden. And given that we have 10 million people living here, I believe that's about 100% of the target group that has it. And yeah, what really happens is that it's a form of e-legitimation, challenge response and such things. Yes. And I realized after I got this picture in here that there is no access here. Sorry. But what I wanted to say here is that there are 100 million transactions or instances of BankID challenge response that are made every year last year. That are not a part of an economic transaction. So there is 100 million signings towards an authority. So we already do have an e-legitimation identification that is coupled to our personal identification numbers and to our, by extension, our physical IDs. So that's a special thing about Sweden. Yes, there's pizza. Next. So I think that some of the prerequisites for a positive ID chip revolution we already have, at least here in this country. We do have a kind of societal acceptance for body modifications, like tattoos and piercings. We do have an infrastructure, and we already have people, everybody in the target group already using internet identification that are coupled to our actual person as a unique identifier. And then there's this part about safe and secure hardware and software. I'm not sure if we have that. Do you think that we need something more than this for a positive ID chip revolution? Ethics, I suppose. I don't know. So I suppose that there's a big difference between places like Sweden and Denmark, who have very strong identification already with personal identification numbers, and, for example, the US, where they don't even know how many people they are, or how many people who are allowed to vote. You know, that's basic here since 1759. So. I think we should do the pizza, and I think there's going to be a lovely discussion. I'll just put that there and grab some pizza.